welcome to the master class. I'm so excited to have a group of people here. I've been having some interaction with people in this group on Facebook, so I'm really excited to meet some of you, and you can maybe see this is different from a Zoom meeting. Can you hear me okay? Am I too loud? I do tend to project, even though I'm sitting in this room speaking to a computer, right? But I can see names, I recognize people. Okay, Barbara's having trouble launching. Glad to see Kathy's here from Bellingham, Washington. Please do share where you're joining us from. Barbara's from Charleston, South Carolina. Exciting. And Catherine from San Francisco. Nice. Julie from Lansing. All right, I'm really glad that you're here. I have been doing some version of this masterclass for several years. And it might be hard for you to imagine how much I just keep trying to make it more impactful. I just really want to reach people with these messages. That's why I really promote this, because we are doing so many things that are making it way too hard. And I'm going to cry already. I'm starting to cry because I spent many years just continuing to do things that weren't working and feeling like a failure. And it hurts me to think how many years I spent feeling like that. And it hurts me to hear every time I meet someone new who says something along these same lines of, you know, all these things that used to work aren't working anymore. And I'm feeling bad about myself, right? I remember really, I would wake up in the morning feeling bad about myself, and I would go to bed feeling bad about myself, and trying to get dressed in the morning with all those different sizes in the closet made me feel bad. But the worst thing is I was starting to have so many health issues, and I was really starting to get worried that my future wasn't going to be the bright, active, self-determined future that I always imagined for myself. And it's just not okay. And once I finally really studied what the heck is going on, and got really clear how terrible the messages are for us out there in the marketplace, how misleading, how unhelpful, how destructive, I really got a sense of mission about I've got to help other people see why the messages out there in the marketplace aren't serving us, and what's true versus all these things that really are not helping us. So yeah, if you haven't, please share in the chat where you're coming from, what your name is, where you're coming from. And as we go, I might ask you to put something in the chat just to keep engagement. Like, I really encourage you. It took me years to find these answers that I'm sharing today. And I know it's your time. We're used to like watching things and doing other stuff at the same time and multitasking. I really invite you to carve out this time and really make it a special time to learn something that could be life-changing. I've had so many people over the years tell me that masterclass changed my life. And so that's how I designed it. That's why I keep working it and reworking it all the time. That's why I take this time. So I hope you'll give it an opportunity to give you those kinds of results. All right, so what are we going to do today? I really want you to understand why diets don't work. And it shocks my clients. I have some new clients this week who are saying, you're telling me to eat a lot. It's kind of scary. Yeah. And most of us actually have to eat more because losing weight, getting to a really healthy weight, is not about eating less and less and less. Some of the people who are the most overweight are at a very restricted diet, and there's like nowhere to go with it, right? That's not the key. And I really hope to change your mind on that today. In fact, one of the reasons I do this is I find that readiness for change, one of the things that we find about habit change in the world is only about 20% of people who need to make a change are ready for change. And I believe part of that is because we have too much misinformation crammed into our heads defending the habits that we have, right? And so one of the things this masterclass is designed to do is help get some of that misinformation out of the way so that you're ready to take in information that can be life-changing, right? So I really want you to understand why dieting doesn't work, and you probably have to eat more. I'm going to say a little bit about how drinking affects our weight, because a large percent, probably more than 80% of the people that I work with are like me. Like, it was our eating and our drinking that was affecting our weight. So I really want to talk about, it's not a matter of empty calories. That's what we say. It's sort of a simple thing to say, but that understanding is not really helping us. So I want to share a little bit about how drinking actually affects our weight, why we don't know how healthy eating or weight loss actually works, and we think we do, right? And the top 3 mistakes almost all of us are making that make it harder than it has to be. And I'm just going to check in the chat. Lisa from Connecticut, cool. Katie from Portland, Oregon. Catherine. Okay, here's the other thing I want to say is when you share, try to share to everyone instead of hosts and panelists. You see the where you're typing right above that, there's a blue box that either can say everyone or hosts and panelists. And it's better if we're like talking with each other, especially since I'm not going to watch the chat that much. And I do have a wingman, which is Julie, but I didn't make her a panelist, so she's not going to be able to see everything. I can see Kim from Fort Mill, South Carolina. Cool. Yay. All right. Everybody can hear me. All right. And Barbara got launched. Okay. Isn't it weird when Zoom does that? Like, no, you have to do a whole bunch of things now. I'm not letting you in. Okay. Anyway, I'm really glad you made time to be here. I hope this will really be helpful for you. I really want to help you get clarity about the difference between here's all the things that don't work and here's what does work. This is a big aspect of my training that has been really, really helpful to me. It's so hard to find the true answers to what works that I feel like I had to have like a PhD to be able to find the answers to what works. Not just a PhD, so I know how to read scientific literature and where to find it and how to judge how good it is, etc. But also like an expertise in evidence-based practices. So I knew how to look at the research for what actually works. Right? So you go out there in the marketplace and everybody says, this works and this works and this works. Your friends are saying, I'm doing the keto diet and it really works. And somebody else is saying, I'm doing intermittent fasting and it really works. What do they mean? So we're going to talk a little bit about how do you judge all these arguments about what works, and how would you tell the difference between all the things that maybe seem to work in some way temporarily and the things that work reliably and predictably for sustainable results. Like, anybody done with weight loss that doesn't sustain, where you just gain the weight back? I'm going to cry again. It's heartbreaking. It's painful. It's miserable. Yes, Barbara, right? Me too. I'm done with it. All right. So let me share a bit of the big picture here. So part of the big picture is that more Americans than ever, and I often will use America as a reference point, but really our diet and our problems with overweight and obesity, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, etc., have transported all over the world now. So really, America may be the worst. The United States may be one of the worst. I live in Mexico, so really the American continent is one of the worst for all these problems. But it is a problem that is spreading all over the world. So kind of recognizing what is it about the American diet that's so terrible can be very helpful to people everywhere. I do have quite a lot of people who follow me from Europe and from Australia and New Zealand. So the big picture here is more Americans than ever are trying to lose weight, yet our society is way more overweight than ever before, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. In fact, UCLA researchers looked at, well, which diets actually give sustainable weight loss? Like, are there any diets that give sustainable weight loss? And their conclusion was, they don't give sustainable weight loss. Don't do it. It actually it'll just slow down your metabolism and make everything worse. It'd be better to never go on a diet. Now, the picture on the left there is a picture from the beach in the like when I was a kid in the 1960s, when most people were not overweight or obese. And one reason I show that is that's a really short time for these really big changes in our weight. And this is weight gain issues that go along with these diseases I just mentioned: diabetes, heart disease, and stroke, cancer. A lot of cancers are related to our way of eating, and dementia. And probably I also feel pain and inflammation, a lot of orthopedic issues. I wouldn't have thought that just by looking at the research, but I saw it in my own body. I've heard it from so many people I've worked with that pain and inflammation goes away when we change our eating for the better. So just all these ways that we're getting sicker faster and longer in our lives that feel so normal and natural and common. They just weren't 60 years ago. They weren't in other countries where they were eating a more traditional diet until they took over our diet. So like now, anywhere from 50 to 80% of us are developing high blood pressure, heart disease, or high blood sugar diabetes, right? So it's a disastrous situation that I think we want to get much more informed about and stand against, like with great intention and energy, and like get mad about it. It is not our fault. And I'm going to show you what I mean. And it's all very linked to what and how we eat and drink more than anything else. Now, exercise matters, but about 1/10 as much as what we eat. So exercise is important for our health, but not so much for our weight. It's really surprising when you look at the research. Oh, Catherine from SoCal. All right. Okay, I'm going to share a little bit of my story here so you'll see where I came from and why I get tearful throughout this whole session is because it's really personal to me, and because I especially care about women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, etc., because I feel like we're really important in the community, like we're really needed. I don't know if you have seen the research saying that in Orca society, the pods that have grandmothers, the babies do much better. And it kind of makes sense, right? Like, so there was this question of why when they're past their childbearing years, why do orcas need grandmothers around? Is there any kind of advantage? Well, yes, the babies do better when there's grandmothers, right? It's just a simple way of looking at. I think that the world really needs the leadership of wise, mature women. We just have these are my favorite people in the world, right? They're awesome people who are making great contributions. We need them to be well. And one of the reasons I care about this is I feel like we take so much care of everyone else. We sometimes think, I'll take care of myself later, and later's not coming, and we're like, oh, maybe I need to take better care of myself. So it became very personal for me because I thought I knew how to eat healthy. I'm a smart person. I'm well read. I was trying really hard. I was spending time and energy and money on eating healthy, right? And on maintaining my weight. And in my 20s and 30s, whatever I was doing seemed to work. I really didn't gain weight. I just felt like everyone should do what I do, and it's not hard. Like I drink when I want and I eat what I want, and it all works out great. If I start to gain a little bit of weight, I just exercise a bit more, I just eat a bit less, and it seems to come right off. And then in my 40s, that really started to change. My hormones started changing. I started getting hot flashes. I started having insomnia. I started feeling super weird, like whose body is this and why is it reacting this way? And I started putting on weight. So it was this whole package of problems. Right? And I think that's true for most of us. And then I developed prediabetes. And by 2014, I think I was, 55 probably. Yeah, because I'm 64 now. So I really was feeling pretty lousy. Now, one thing that had become really important to me is I really love my eating and drinking. I have this very special way of eating and drinking. I say special, but it was every day, it was every night. I don't know exactly what special means anymore at that point, but I know I was going for a big specialness in the way I was eating and drinking every night. And I was having a bottle of wine every night. And I just felt like this is how I love myself. I work really hard. I take care of everyone else all day. I was running a Montessori school right before that. With little kids, and it's like taking care of teachers and taking care of board members and taking care of children and taking care. And my way of taking care of myself was, well, I'm going to have really special food and drink tonight. This is how I show love to myself. But my health was really going downhill, right? And I had this really big wake-up call right after that, where I started working as a transition into doing my own business. I started working in nursing homes part-time as a psychologist. And I thought, oh, this is going to be people in their 80s and 90s who are, getting to the end of their life, and I'll just help them with that transition. And I was pretty shocked at how many people in there were in their 60s and 70s. Cry again. They weren't much older than me, a lot of them. And they were telling me, you got to get me out of here. My kids are taking my car. They're taking my house. I don't have any of my stuff that I worked so hard for anymore. I don't belong in here. You got to help me get out. So I started researching what are their conditions? Is there a way to reverse them? Like, I'm this hopeful person. Maybe there's a way to reverse this stuff. And as I researched what was going on, the majority of them had health conditions that are like what I talked about in the big picture, which is they were cardiometabolic diseases like high blood sugar and diabetes, high blood pressure and heart disease and stroke, dementia, cancer. So the majority of them were in there with conditions that can be changed with lifestyle changes until it passes a certain threshold. And every one of them had passed a certain threshold. They weren't getting out again. And I felt like, you know what, Ginny, this is where you're headed. If you don't make a real change, if you don't figure this out, if you keep defending this really indulgent lifestyle that you feel like you need and you love, that's honestly where you're headed, right? So in that state of, oh, holy shit, right? In that state, I really started figuring out, I can't go to the popular media anymore and find good answers. People are not getting good results with all those answers out there at all. Nobody is. Nobody's getting good results following the popular media. So I thought, well, you know what? I know science. I know how to look at the scientific literature. I know how to find evidence-based practices. I'm going to go do that. And I can tell you, in the early days, I was crying. You're like, I don't have time for this. And just, you know what? If you're not in a nursing home yet, fight for this right now. Go fight to find out what's actually healthy to eat that will give you a really healthy future long-term, and maybe, hopefully, weight loss, and maybe some reduction in these symptoms. So I had to spell out, what am I looking for in the research? I'm looking for eating and drinking that gives health and weight loss, if there's such a thing, and health in terms of these minimizing the symptoms I was having, health in terms of minimizing the risk of those diseases. I was already pre-diabetic. By the way, I had so much pain and inflammation throughout my system that had started from high school, actually from an injury, that I really could barely walk anymore. I had so much trouble with my feet. So maybe I could turn that around. And once I found these principles and I started following them, I started finding a way to thoroughly enjoy eating what's actually proven to be nutritious for my body. All these issues started turning around. It was dramatic. The weight also just really started falling off. I started sleeping really well again. I got all this energy again. And pretty soon I was at a size that was like, I didn't know I could get to this size anymore. But it's a lot more fun shopping for clothes. And it has sustained since then. So that is the magic piece that I want to suggest we want to look for. When people tell you this works and that works and this is so great, and I'm taking Ozempic and it's so great, and it really works, is this working in a sustainable kind of way where it's actually giving you better health? And it's very sustainable. It's something you can keep doing the rest of your life that gives you these great results. So I can tell you in 2014, at first, I had been doubling down on what used to work that wasn't working anymore and wasn't working anymore. And for 10 years, it wasn't working anymore. We want to quit doubling down on the approaches that don't work, right? It's painful to think about. Let's see, any questions so far? I just shared my story. So I'm going to share more about why dieting is a big mistake. It's the number one mistake people are making is I'm going to eat less or exercise more or eat less and exercise more. And that's going to force my body to release excess weight. It's pretty much what our doctors tell us. It's their best understanding of what works. It's what dietitians and nutritionists tell us. It's what, in some way, it's what most of the books tell us. And I just have found it is not true. It's a misunderstanding of how our bodies work. And it's painful to think. Like we have 100 years, and it's interesting looking at the research. This is what you sort of see. What I saw is there's about 100 years of research proving this idea of calorie cutting doesn't work for sustainable weight loss. But the researchers do something really weird at the end of all their studies. They say it didn't look like it worked like it should, but it must work because it's like a principle of physics. So it must be that the participants lied to us, right? Or they didn't do what they said they were doing. Again, it's sort of like it's our own fault. It's like our own individual fault. If we could just eat less, we'd succeed. It is not true. Eating less and less and less is not going to lead to more success. Many of the most obese people are the people eating the least. It's just not true that eating less is the answer. What we eat matters, but it's not about eating less. It's not about trying to force our body to release excess weight. Our body, you've all heard this stuff, right? Our body defends against starvation. So it has this guiding principle of homeostasis. You know, if I get over hot, I live in Mexico. It can happen a few months of the year. If I get over hot, my body's going to try to correct this. I don't have to force it to. It's going to sweat, right? It's going to help cool me down by producing sweat. And if I get over cold, my body's going to try to protect me by making me shiver. And if I get inadequate nutrition, not necessarily inadequate calories, but if I get inadequate nutrition, my body's going to make me hungry, and it's going to slow my metabolism, right? You ever notice you get really hungry when you reduce your food or you exercise more? That's not exactly something we can just fight, right? You don't want to be in this fight with your body. And that's something I just started feeling differently about. I don't want to fight with my body. I want to figure out what it actually needs and learn how to give it that, right? So I just want to say a little bit about what's happening in our body when we're dieting. So there's a couple of hormones that are changing. One is the hormone that tells us when we've had enough to eat is changing. So that system kind of breaks. We are not getting enough to eat. We need to keep eating. So the messages about you had enough to eat never come. I think of it like this. If I'm eating, like one of my favorite things to do was to, instead of having dinner, I don't feel like having dinner, I'm just going to have popcorn and wine and chocolate. And my body really doesn't get any nutrition out of that meal. And I still feel hungry at the end, right? Like I keep eating and eating and drinking and drinking and eating and drinking, and doesn't seem like there's any end. That's a sign that this hormone leptin is not functioning correctly. Or it's functioning correctly in the sense that it's my body saying, I didn't get any nutrition yet, keep going. Now, the message, keep going, eating this stuff that isn't nutritious is not a helpful message to me. My body's just doing what it can do to get me to keep eating. Does that make sense? What do you guys think? Can you experience that? Another hormone that changes when we diet is cortisol. And we've all heard about cortisol. It's the stress hormone. So when we diet, we see that our cortisol goes up. So again, it's a way that our body is saying, we're not getting enough nutrition. We're going to have to start foraging. You ever find yourself wandering around the kitchen? What do I feel like eating? Sort of a foraging behavior, like a bear getting ready to hibernate. So yeah, we get messed up hunger hormones and we get messed up stress hormones. So this is what dieting feels like, right? I'm hungry and I'm stressed and uncomfortable. I'm anxious, I'm hangry, I don't feel good. This is not a setup for success biologically or psychologically, right? It's going to lead to worse results. What do you guys think? Have you experienced that? Yeah, tell me, dieting sucks. Tell me in the chat. Dieting sucks. Have you found dieting sucks? Yes, absolutely. Dieting sucks. We don't have to do that anymore. It becomes really important to find out how to nourish our body because we didn't learn it in this environment. What we learned has led us really astray, right? Dieting is not the answer. All right, let me share a thought experiment with you about a calorie is a calorie. And really, I'm telling you, our doctors, our nutritionists, all these guys are being trained. It's all about calories. It's all about calories. All we got to do is eat less calories. So there is a physics principle, calories in, calories out. But that is not a good understanding of our biology, of how our body handles calories. And it makes us think that a calorie is a calorie. So if I'm trying to manage to 1,500 calories a day, I'm going to make, it used to be, I'm going to make sure that my wine is in there, right? That's going to be my first priority of the day. There's no nutrition in that, or virtually no nutrition in that. There is toxicity in it that my body's going to have to recover from. It does a lot of things to my hormones that are not going to be good for me and to my gut. Right? It really can be wrecking my immune system, increasing cancer risk, all these things. But that was, if I'm just prioritizing calories, my first priority was how am I going to make sure I have enough room for wine? Or before that, it was how am I going to make sure I have enough room for dessert? Anybody else? Did you save your calories for wine? I'm going to talk a little bit about my person that I worked with, my client, Michaelina, who, she was always thinking, she's always managing her calories, really thought it worked for a really long time, but she was going from a size small to a size medium to a size large to a size extra large, eating less and less and less all the time with this calories focus. And it was always, there's a wedding tomorrow. I need to save my calories for the cookie table. Or I'm going out to dinner with my husband tomorrow night. We're going to get a bottle of wine. I need to save my calories for that. This is such a misunderstanding of our bodies, and it is ending up to our abusing our bodies in a lot of ways. Yeah. Less dinner, more wine. Yes, you guys all relate to this, right? I really want to help knock that idea out of your head because it's hurting you. It is hurting your results and it's hurting your mindset toward your body. So let's do this thought experiment that this calorie cutting approach is not the best approach. So I remember being really excited about the 100 calorie right bites. Oh, yay. I want cookies, but I want to make sure I don't eat 6,000 calories of it. So the 100 calorie right bites seemed like such a great solution to me, right? All I got to care about is calories. This is so wrong, right? If you look at those two options, do you think they do the same thing in your body? Does your body welcome that 100 calories of cookies like that was super nutritious for me? That really helps me. No. In fact, it may be introducing toxicity, the sugar, the flour, all the processed stuff. not only that, but it took maybe it took the place of 100 calories of berries that actually has really valuable nutrition for you. And so there's these two big problems with this calories focus. It's justifying eating non-nutritious things as long as we manage the calories, and it is pushing out the nutritious things our bodies really need. Yeah, I'm going to cry again. So do you think those two things affect our hormones the same? Absolutely not. Do you think they affect our heart the same? Our liver? No. Our kidneys? Do you think they affect our brain the same? Do you think they affect our gut the same? Our gut microbiome is this huge driver of our health and our longevity. And we are having a lot of trouble with our gut microbiome in this culture. These two things have completely different effects in our gut. So the effect on our cells, on our health and longevity, and on our weight, completely different between these two foods. So we can completely transform our results when we move away from the whole idea of focusing on calories. So I'll tell you the way I ended up focusing is I want to learn what my body actually needs to be healthy. So it used to be my priorities were, I want it to be tasty, I want it to be convenient, and I want it to be healthy, in that order. So what the food industry learned to do is make things as tasty as possible with food technologies, with sugar, with etc., right? And make it as convenient as possible, and then put packaging that tells you this is good for you. And I'm going to tell you how far this has gone for us. So I decided I really need to flip my priorities. I really want my top priority to be what's going to give my body the best chance to be as healthy and happy as possible. And I want it to taste good, and I want it to be convenient, right? When I flipped the priorities that way, I started eating completely differently, right? So I can eat things that help my body, or I can eat things that harm my body and make excuses and rationales and justifications for it. But it matters to my body. Every time I say, this won't matter, I'll make up for it tomorrow. I'll just have a little. I'm giving rationales for eating things that are harmful to my body. And I just really wanted to change that. I wanted to be aware of my psychology. I wanted to be aware of my habits because it matters. And I tell you, pain and inflammation I'd had for 35 years went away. All the medications I was on, and I was looking for more medications. I was looking for surgeries. Somebody help me with all this pain and inflammation. It all changed when I changed my eating. I felt like I was eating healthy, but I was eating healthy according to our food environment, which is deranged. I'm going to talk about that more in a minute. Doctors who specialize in hormones and metabolism believe our eating approach is now making most of us overweight, obese, and hormone dysregulated with cardiometabolic disease like heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, etc., making most of us insulin resistant. So we're storing excess fat. We have slowed metabolism, and the research really supports this conclusion. So our eating and our dieting are put together the number one cause of overweight, obesity, metabolic dysfunction, hormone dysfunction, gut dysfunction, immune system dysfunction. And scientists feel like this package of problems we're seeing in our society now that I just went through all together looks just like animals that are getting ready to hibernate. Like bears that are getting ready to hibernate, they get really hungry. They start foraging, right? They start getting, storing more fat. They get high blood sugar, they get high blood pressure. So what this looks like, and we see this in many, many species of animals, it looks like we are animals living in a food scarcity situation, right? So the bear is doing that because it's going to go 3 months needing to live off its own fat. It looks like that's what we're doing. We are in such a food scarce environment, at least the way we are eating, that our body is really trying to hold on. It's holding on to fat. It's driving up our blood sugar and our blood pressure, etc. Our body is trying to solve the problem of inadequate nutrition. It's saying, keep eating. I didn't get any nutrition yet. This is heartbreaking, right? We are being so misled by our food environment. All right, so I'm going to talk more. By the way, the reason to stay to the end is I spend the first half talking about what doesn't work and why, and hopefully giving you a sense of emotion about this, like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? I let myself get in touch with my pain over it because I want that to be helpful to you, right? After this, I have to go get a massage or something because I get really pretty emotional. But in the second half of the program, I'm going to tell you what does work and share why it's completely different from what we're doing. Now, before I get to the end of this part of the hour, I want to let you know that I have made 10 slender breakthrough calls available in my schedule. So in case some people have to leave, the only way to get into my Slender for Good program is through a breakthrough call. Everyone who's I'm going to share some success stories. Everyone who's had these successes has had this call. And the reason is I do this pretty small program where I know all of my clients pretty intimately, where if they ever feel stuck with their program, they know how to get in touch with me like that, right? So the call is a chance to really look at what's the greatest potential, the greatest untapped potential, the greatest opportunity for a breakthrough for you. And does it relate to what I do in my program? You know, so many of the women I work with are doing like 80% right. They're really not that far off, but they're not getting good results. They're far enough off to not get good results. Like the problem just keeps compounding. So what you take away from the breakthrough call is greater clarity about what the problem is. Like if you keep trying to solve this problem and that's not your problem, you're just beating your head against the wall, right? So we really want to get clear what's your problem that you're facing, what's the roadmap to a breakthrough for you. And I've made 10 slots available in my schedule. Oh, I'm sorry, let me share the link to book a call is drginny.as.me/slender. Yeah. This ended up, booking this call ended up being the easiest decision people ever made. I have a whole recording of women saying, it's a bit of a leap of faith, right? To try to find somebody you can trust to coach you on this. And they're just encouraging you to take the leap. It's life-changing to get the right guidance and effective coaching from somebody who knows how to coach for successful habit change with really entrenched habits. Our eating is really entrenched habits. All right, so why we have an inkling that drinking alcohol affects our weight. I work with a lot of women who are like, I quit drinking, but I'm still not losing weight. And it's our eating and our drinking, really. So when we're eating enough of the things our body really needs, that's the first key to losing weight. And avoiding toxic things that are making it hard to lose weight is another. So let me tell you a little bit about saving our calories for our alcohol, right? So if it were about calories, maybe that would help, right? One of the things alcohol does is it shuts off our fat burning process. So it's just another message about why it's not about calories. Drinking alcohol shuts off our fat burning process because our body recognizes alcohol as toxic, and dealing with that toxin becomes our body's top priority, right? So it consumes the alcohol first, and any other food we eat is kind of put aside, is stored, right? Stored as fat for later use. So the fact that drinking alcohol shuts off our fat burning process is a better understanding of why drinking affects our weight, right? Then I quit drinking, but I still didn't lose weight. I'm going to talk about Lily, who, she stopped drinking a bottle of wine a night and didn't lose any weight. It doesn't necessarily produce weight loss, but drinking alcohol will make weight loss really difficult. It'll drive weight gain. Here's another reason. Anybody feel like I get really hungry when I drink, or either that night or the next day, and I'm just craving certain kinds of things like salty, fatty things. And that's a proven result from drinking too. The more we drink, the more we have that hunger for salty, fatty things. It's another way that our body's trying to correct the problem of this toxin in our system. Drinking also drives up cortisol, right? We all feel like, one of the arguments I had why I'm going to drink because it's the end of the day. I need this break from daytime into nighttime. I need to relax. I don't know how I could possibly sleep without my wine. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible to quit drinking, right? So when we drink, we're driving up cortisol. The first thing we feel is that relaxing sensation. It may not actually be relaxation, but a slowdown in our brain, right? And we get certain depressant chemicals. Again, our body's going to fight for homeostasis. So when we get those chemicals, our body says, oh, this feels too depressed. This feels too slow. We need to stay awake. Like we're still awake. So it starts driving up cortisol in your system. So within about 20 minutes, as your blood sugar falls and cortisol starts rising, most of us naturally feel like I'm going to have another drink, right? I want to make the feelings of cortisol and the feelings of falling my blood sugar falling kind of rapidly. Like it went up rapidly, that felt good. Now it's coming down rapidly, that doesn't feel good. Another drink will solve this, right? So for those 20 minutes of the blood sugar rising, when it feels kind of like a high, kind of like a euphoric feeling, we get 2 hours of downer chemicals in our body, right? It's sad. So anyway, so alcohol drives up cortisol. By the next day, like for me, I always think about by the next day, there was a lot of cortisol in my system. I felt a lot of anxiety about, I need that next drink. Now, I wasn't going to drink today. This morning, I felt like I'm not going to drink tonight, but yes, I am. It was a hard day and I need it. And that's partly because the cortisol really ramps up while it's getting to that point where you would usually have a drink, right? Our primitive brain takes that to mean this is important. This is really important. And so that's part of what we need to fight against when we decide, I'm going to take a break from drinking. I'm going to break up with drinking for a while and see if it changes everything. We feel that way in the morning, and by nighttime, we're like, no, I'm not. I need it. It's important to me. That sense of importance, of salience, is what happens with our primitive brain and our habits. It feels important. It actually isn't. It's just mental junk that we created by giving into that over and over. Anyway. So drinking also drives up cortisol. It leads to disrupted sleep and anxiety and hunger, and it impairs our thinking and our judgment. We all know that. Part of why I wanted to drink is I wanted to quit thinking. Oh, can I just shut off my brain, right? So it feels beneficial until it crosses a certain line, and then we know our thinking and our judgment is impaired. So we are making less good choices, right? All right. So I didn't mean to skip that part. That's why I have to check my notes periodically. All right, you ready to talk about how what works is totally different? Let me hear from you in this first half. What did you hear that doesn't work, that you really want to think about and chew on? What doesn't work that you might want to leave behind, that you're willing to explore leaving behind? Can I get some responses in the chat? What doesn't work that you want to leave behind? I'm going to wait for 3 responses. Counting calories, right? Counting. Here's my number of calories. Do you believe me? Maybe not 100% yet. Are you willing to question it? Are you willing to be curious about it? Drinking at night and eating sweets at night. Yeah, it's a great way to really spike your insulin and have a sugar crash in the middle of the night. So that really disrupts your sleep. That along with the excess cortisol, right? Restricting the amount of food doesn't work. Lisa, definitely want to leave behind the alcohol. Snacking at night. Yeah, snacking at night was also something I felt, this is really important. I need this. I don't know. And it's one of those things where you try to stop a habit like that, and it's nighttime, you don't have good willpower at that point, your habit tends to want to keep going. Your primitive brain wants to keep your status quo habits going. So you go, just tonight, and then tomorrow I'll stop, right? And the thing is, we just keep practicing the habit. We don't ever get the chance to see, I actually don't have to do that. It actually isn't important. But our primitive brain says, let's just keep doing what we've been doing, right? It feels important. So that is just part of the trick to breaking up with these habits, is knowing that feeling of, I got to do this. I just need to soothe myself a little bit. No, I don't. I'm not going to snack tonight, and we're not going to die, right? One of the things that was most helpful to me in this process was learning, instead of beating yourself up, no, you're not going to have that. It'll be more effective if I go, we're just not snacking tonight. We had enough to eat. All right. By the way, having enough to eat is pretty key to avoiding snacking at night. Once I learned to do that, that habit was not hard to break. I thought it was going to be really hard. And it's because the way I was trying to break the habit was a really ineffective way. I've been eating dates telling myself it's fruit, but they're so full of sugar. Yeah, it's interesting. So dried fruit is candy pretty much, right? I'm a big fan of dried fruit. I don't get good results if I include it in my diet. It's too much sugar. Yeah. I want to not want to drink anymore. Yes, that's a great goal. So if you woke up every day and you journaled about what's one thing that will help me not want to drink anymore? How can I make 10% progress in not wanting to drink anymore, right? It's not exactly a magic thing. I was talking with one of my clients this week. I'm going to cry about her because she was really struggling to get progress with her drinking. And now she's got 5 months, and it's so wonderful to see how alive she feels, how free she feels, how much easier this is than she thought, how much more rewarding it is than she thought. And it's like she's falling in love with herself. It's like she's rediscovering the best parts of herself. That's something I found. I love seeing that with people. Yeah. And it is partly not just taking a break from drinking, but losing the desire. And that can take a little while. I can tell you, I think I got about 6 years now. Once in a while, maybe once a year, I'll have a moment of, I think I could just drink tonight. It wouldn't be any big deal. It's just part of the process of getting free of it. But it's pretty fast for me now to go, I heard that thought, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just a thought. It makes a difference if I drink. It makes a big difference. I just don't drink. But the first year was a certain amount of, but I feel like I have to. Yeah, but I don't. I don't have to. Absolutely will survive this evening without a drink. And that's my choice right now. It's just off the table, right? So the first thing is be really kind to yourself and find a way to get some time free of drinking, so that you can start to get your brain back, right? So that your logical brain and your primitive brain can see, yeah, we don't die if we don't drink. Nothing terrible happens. Why do I say it that dramatic? Because our status quo habits feel a little bit like, but I'll die if I don't. And it feels silly to say it. It's not what anybody says to me, but I know what our primitive brain is doing, because our primitive brain is all about survival. It believes I'm only going to survive if I keep up the habits that I've got. They are important. So anything, especially anything addictive, it gives a sense of salience. Ooh, that felt really important. That big dopamine hit feels really important. That's why these things are addictive, right? It feels important. It feels like almost like I could die if I don't do it, right? Nope, no one's going to die. We're just taking a break for a period of time, right? Calories does not equal calories. Yeah, thank you, Barbara. All right, I'm going to go on to the 5 steps of getting slender for good. And I hope that it's apparent how they're different from dieting. It's taken me a long time to figure out how to explain these 5 steps. So I'm always happy to get your feedback. I'm not trying to make it overly complicated, right? There's one guy I like to read who talks about healthy eating, and his approach has got a lot of good stuff in it. But he's got 13 steps, and I feel like psychologically, I can't do 13 steps. That's too many, right? If the 13 fit into 5, maybe I could do it. All right. So I've spent a lot of time figuring out, okay, what are these steps? How can understanding the steps help people go, I see what I need to leave behind, and I see where I need to go instead, right? All right. So I'm going to go into these in a little bit of depth, but the first one is eating. You got to eat. I call it the slender way. Sometimes I call it other things. Sometimes I call it happy body eating. But we need to learn to eat in a way that gives our body what it actually needs to thrive. I'm going to cry again. Like, isn't that obvious? And it is not the way we're eating. And I'm going to give you more information about that. What researchers say seems to happen. You know how I talked about it? Look, researchers think it looks like we are in a low nutrition environment, in a food scarcity environment, and our body has like flipped a switch. So we are now storing excess fat. We're now developing high blood pressure, high blood sugar, all these things that are making most of us, more than half of us, sick for the last 10 years of our lives. It's like we flipped a switch and all those things start happening, and that's the direction we're going, and our body's defending the higher weight. If you feel like your body's defending a higher weight, I would submit maybe your body has flipped a switch. And now it's not a matter of how much less can you eat. It's how can I flip the switch back? So what I discovered, to my amazement, really, was when you eat in this way, and it's really specific, it's really clear, there are 4 fundamentals to it. There's really specific quantities of proteins and fats and fruits and vegetables and grains that add up to the slender way eating. It's really, really clear. You flip a switch in your body and these things start to go the other way. So instead of storing excess fat, you're burning fat, right? You're using the calories for energy. So a lot of people say, I'm just feeling so much more energetic. I'm sleeping better. I have so much less anxiety, so much more calm and peace, especially around my eating. But in general, like I'm thinking better. All these things start functioning better when you give your body the nutrition it needs. I really had no idea. I really didn't think I was far enough off with the way I was eating that I could have this giant change, right? So, and I get to see it every day with my clients. So it really helps me say this absolutely works. I'm following hundreds and thousands of people every day who are eating this way. And you see all these big health improvements, transformations really, right? Because we flip a switch in our body. Now, the third stage is, okay, I know how to eat. I'm enjoying it. My body is really responding. Now, I want to figure out how to crave these good foods like I used to crave the bad foods, so that I don't ever feel deprived eating this way. I thoroughly enjoy it, right? And that's a little bit of a process, and it's a process that I don't hear anyone else talking about. I think I figured this part out because I'm a psychologist, because I understood, just like, was it Catherine saying, I want to quit wanting to drink. I needed that. I needed to quit wanting the chocolate, wanting all the non-nutritious stuff. Maybe chocolate's not terrible for us. I personally have such an addictive reaction to things like that I needed to quit craving it, right? I just wanted those cravings gone. I wanted to crave the things that my body actually needs to thrive. And that actually didn't turn out to be hard. Our biology is changing, even our gut microbiome changes. So if you find you're craving all this non-nutritious stuff, it might be partly the bad gut bacteria that are yelling like, we need more sugar right now, right? Your gut bacteria, there's good ones and there's bad ones. And when you have too many bad ones that are yelling for sugar, whether it's in the form of alcohol or in the form of pastries or whatever, it's making an inhospitable environment for the good gut bacteria. So that really, really matters. So our gut microbiome changes when we change this. Our taste buds turn over within like 2 weeks. A lot of people can quit craving the bad stuff really fast, like 24 to 48 hours with this process. It doesn't have to go. I think that's one thing people are so scared of. I'm going to keep craving things that aren't good for me, and I'm going to feel deprived all the time. It doesn't have to be that way. The next stage is you achieve your slender, healthy weight. For a lot of us, it's a lot more slender than we thought. Like I thought, okay, I'm over 50 now. I haven't been under a size 10 in a long, long time. I think a size 10 is good enough. 150 pounds is good enough. But as I ate this way, I didn't have to stop at 150 pounds. It just kept going. There was no reason to stop. So I thought about, okay, what was a healthy weight that I've had since high school, right? And that was college weight. And I just naturally landed there. And my body has defended that weight now for 6 years. So getting to our slender, healthy weight is the next step. There's a transition period now. Okay, I'm at my weight. Now I'm actually going to start eating more, right? I'm going to add some food. A lot of us add a certain amount of food. So I added food and then I waited to see how that landed, and I added some more and I waited to see. And it was a process of about 4, 5, 6 weeks. And one thing that's interesting is you stop losing weight, right? And it was so exciting every week, losing weight, losing weight, losing weight. And the excitement of losing weight stops. This is where most people start going back to their old ways of eating. They start gaining weight again, right? So it's important how we manage that transition. Now, living slender for good the rest of my life, that's what I want. I don't want dieting and then gaining weight and then dieting and then gaining weight, especially when that goes along with a whole bunch of health issues. So living slender for good is what we're aiming for. And it starts with learning the way of eating, our body responding and going, awesome. We are happy to release weight now. And then we're figuring out how to fall in love with eating this way. We get to our slender weight, we add food, and we just live this way the rest of our lives. Does that sound different from our approach to dieting? Like, what are some differences here, right? So the five steps to slender for good, what I'm trying to convey is you need a system that works predictably and reliably for women over 40, right? That's what I went searching for. That's what I found. That's what I teach. You can find, maybe you can find it somewhere else. I can tell you, I don't know, 95 to 99% of what you'll find out there is not a system that works predictably and reliably for sustainable weight loss. It's really, really frustrating. So it starts with eating what's truly nourishing for your body, so your body is happy and healthy and happy to release the excess weight, right? You need to then make that a daily habit. Like, this is just what I do every day. Can you hear how that's the antithesis of dieting? Dieting is focusing on temporary change. It's focusing on eating less, not what your body needs. It's focusing on restrictions. You're going to cut these things instead of eating an abundance of real food. It's causing hunger and anxiety in your system. Real setup for failure, right? You don't ever learn sustainable habits for how to eat. And there's all these cultural ideas built into dieting, like these sweet things, these sweetened things that are in packages that are highly profitable for the food industry, that are highly promoted. They're treats. You must never step away from them. You just have to moderate them. Like a lot of us learned with alcohol, trying to moderate it is a way of staying in cravings. It's a way of staying in obsession. Like, I can't wait. When do I get to drink again, right? I did that for a long time. It was a terrible approach for me. And that has turned out to be true for a lot of the highly processed foods in our environment too. So this idea, you have to keep a little, otherwise you'll feel deprived, actually just kept me in cravings and deprivation and obsession, right? So the first key is crucial. We need to eat in a truly healthful, slenderful way. Why did I use the words healthful and slenderful? I did that because I talk about truly healthy eating and people feel like I hear the word healthy eating with everything I eat and I feel like that's what I'm doing. I don't know how to use different words. Healthful, slenderful. How do we recognize that what we're doing isn't truly healthy? All right. Lily's one example. I'm going to tell her story, but I thought I knew how to eat to be healthy. And I thought I knew how to eat to lose weight. And so did Lily and almost everyone who's come to me. I thought I knew, but it's not working anymore, right? So having a very clear, specific system, effective system, proven effective is really key. Like this is super clear. I know when I'm doing it and I know when I'm not doing it. Almost all of us have a vagueness built into our healthy eating. I pretty much do this, right? It's not that vagueness is not serving us. I found this when I studied evidence-based practices when it comes to quitting drinking, substance abuse treatment, when it comes to treating children with serious emotional disturbance and their families, like we're trying to prevent them ending up hospitalized with suicide attempts, right? Super, super stressful for everybody. So we're looking at evidence-based practices. So I studied them a lot. And one thing we find is there has to be great clarity to whether you're doing it or you're not quite doing it, right? Keeping a vagueness in our approach is not helping. So clarity is really important. Effectiveness. So somebody over here says, this really worked for this one family, but how reliably and predictably effective is it in different contexts with different families, right? So I discovered this system because I'm a trained scientist. I realized that the popular media advice is bad. I need to leave that behind, put it aside, put all those. I have one client, one brilliant, beautiful client who says I have 400 diet books. She loved reading these things. She felt like she knew what to do and it just wasn't working. So all that popular media stuff is pretty much misleading. So I discovered what actually works, this effective system, because I'm a trained scientist and I decided to read the research. And because I'm specifically trained in evidence-based practices, I found 4 fundamentals that predictably and reliably add up to healthy, sustainable weight loss. So your body is like naturally burning excess fat, using calories as energy, right? And it's very clear and specific quantities to eat to get slender for good. And so many people find that they start to lose weight really quickly, 5, 10, 15 pounds. I have one client who's been with me just 4 months and has dropped 34 pounds and feels like this is actually the first time losing weight that it actually makes sense. And it's interesting to realize, wow, all those other approaches, when you look at them, didn't make sense. You can see why it's working. You can see why it's going to keep working. And that helps you stick with it, right? So we know how to eat healthy. So that's a couple of pictures of me and that one stock photo and a couple of my clients. We know how to eat healthy, but we're not liking the results we're getting. And look, people can be overweight without it relating to their health. But most of us are gaining weight in a way that is seriously compromising our health in the ways I talked about. Even though we're smart and we're well-read, we're thoughtful, right? We eat so much better than other people around us. We can see that with our own eyes. We're spending time and energy and money to get healthy, but we're not getting good results. Like Lily, it was 10 years of, I am getting terrible results. It's just getting worse. It was over 10 years for me, right? So here's part of what I want to tell you. Our food environment is deranged. I want to make this a little bit dramatic. We can't eat, this much better than everybody else and get good results. Like you're working hard to eat this much better than other people and your results still suck. It's because our food environment is more deranged than we're recognizing. It's deadly. It's virtually impossible in this food environment to understand what's truly healthful to eat. And the cost is we feel like we're failing. Our doctors feel like, just eat less. Come on. You just need, it's all about our own individual choices. And we are finding ourselves getting pulled back further and further from living our most active, healthy life for as long as possible. We're getting heavier and heavier, more and more vulnerable to disease and decline. And a big part of it is it's really a con job. Our food environment is misleading us, telling us things that are bad for us are actually not that bad, or maybe kind of good for us. And that's why I went into the research. Right? Our food environment is deranged. So over 80% of us now are overweight or obese. Most of us in a way that relates to those health conditions I talked about. So our food environment is much worse than we realize. The fat-free craze, I think this is the food pyramid that kind of got launched with the fat-free craze. We've just got to reduce our fat, is what they ended up saying. And we've reduced the percent of fat in our daily intake from 45% to 35%. Big decrease. Now, one thing that happened is our food got less tasty and less enjoyable. So what did they add? Sugar and other highly processed carbohydrates, right? So like breads, refined grains. So now 4 of the top 10 causes of death have well-established links to our diet. Diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, that whole package, cancer, and dementia, strongly linked to our diet. So for me, that I wanted to fight against that. Not only do I want to lose weight, I don't want to be at a high risk for any of those diseases. I want to feel well to the end of my life, if at all possible. It's not what's happening in our environment. The China study is an interesting study. They found that that doctors in China were coming to the United States to say, all of a sudden, we've got heart disease, and we are not used to treating heart disease on this scale. What do we have to do for it? So then people got curious. Why are they suddenly getting heart disease in China? It was in urban Chinese centers. And what it had to do with was they started eating the way we eat, right? Rural Chinese people were still eating in a more traditional way, so we weren't seeing heart disease increasing there. And we're seeing this happening all over the world now. These diseases that are taking most people down so that we're sick the last 10 years of our lives relate to our eating, like our weight relates to our eating. It's this package of problems. We're flipping a switch. And then there's all these unhelpful cultural ideas about what's healthy to eat and what's good to eat and how to lose weight. It's deranged. So a dieting idea is, I'm going to focus on depriving myself of the things I love, the most highly pleasurable, special foods for a while so I can reduce weight. But it's just temporary. Or I'm going to exercise a bit more today so I can treat myself with eating things that aren't good for me. I call them cravingful, highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances because I love them. I love it. I love my wine. I love this. I love that. Really, I just started catching myself saying that. Like, you used to love walking. You used to love going for a walk, and you can't do that anymore. Is it possible the foods and drinks that you say you love are actually harming you so much that you're losing the parts of life that actually make life thoroughly worth living? One of the ideas that I had, as I was looking at the research, I was finding information about we need to eat a lot more vegetables than we think if we're going to be as healthy as possible. And as I was reading it, I was getting this, I shouldn't have to eat that differently from other people. That's too much vegetables. That's just mean. That's just mean, right? How will I fit in my nightly bottle of wine and my chips and my sweets if I eat that much vegetables? Like, it's going to crowd out the things I love. I shouldn't have to drink. I shouldn't have to eat and drink so differently from other people. I shouldn't have to change my eating and drinking so much. So I didn't realize how much my own nutritional wisdom had been perverted. Like the reality of my world is so perverse as far as nutrition. I feel like I need to keep it. I kind of need to keep it. I shouldn't have to. And I'm just basically arguing with reality, right? So how did we get this far off base? I want to show you a couple more graphs to give you the sense of this. How did we get so far off base that we're defending a way of eating that is really far from what's good for us? This is a great slide for this. Look at that. So the number of pounds of sugar consumed in a year, in 2012, 180 pounds by the average, I think this was a United States study. The average American is consuming 180 pounds of sugar in a year. Compare that to 1700 when it was 4 pounds of sugar in a year. Sugar is really proven to be very toxic in our system. And we kind of know it's not good for us. So we're trying to do better than the person next to us, right? But can you see how far we are from what humans have done throughout history, right? So from 1700 to 1800, we went from 4 pounds of sugar a year to 18 pounds. That's a giant leap. We should have stopped. Stop. That's enough, right? But when we went to this fat-free craze, it just got so much worse, so much more sugar added to everything, right? In 1900, we were up to 90 pounds of sugar a year. And then it doubled, about doubled in the next century. And the diabetes rate, the type 2 diabetes rate, has leapt forward along with this increase in sugar. Let me see, I have some stats here. Obesity is up 1,000%, right? It's not normal. It feels normal. Most people now are overweight or obese. It's not. It's not normal for humans. Something has gone wrong. Something is broken. It's not an individual problem, although we can fix it for ourselves. It's a society-wide problem. You can see, though, one reason I point this out is for you to do what's going to change this is going to mean standing against what society says is normal. Like, it's normal to have high blood pressure. Well, it may be normal statistically, but I don't want it. I choose otherwise, right? If it's possible to choose otherwise, I choose otherwise. Not only is it possible, it's easier than you might think. It's simple, it makes sense, and it's thoroughly enjoyable. But it does require going, I need to do something quite different from what the popular media is telling me, from what my friends and family are telling me, from what I'm doing. Are you getting that? I need to do something quite different. Yeah. Does it seem like, do you see this dramatic increase in sugar? Almost all the women I meet, most of them say, I really don't eat that much sugar. I do drink wine, right? Or I have cocktails. We're probably having more sugar than we realize. I loved cereal growing up. I felt like cereal is part of life. And in fact, it's really interesting history behind Kellogg and cereal, and it got super promoted to us as this great option, right? You can have cereal and milk for breakfast and, give it to your kids and send them off to school. So I have spent many hours, even since I learned all this, going up and down the cereal aisle looking for something that isn't made with highly processed grains and sugars, and you can't find it. I have found like 1 out of 100 packages. It's just, but the packaging makes it sound like it's really good for us. So obesity's up over 1,000%. Type 2 diabetes is up at least 300% and is now even a big risk for children. Used to be called adult onset diabetes. We can't call it that anymore because even our children are developing it, right? Diabetes went from 75 people in 100,000 in 1890 to 8,000 people and 100,000 out of 100,000 in 2012. Have you noticed dialysis centers cropping up all over town? I started noticing that when I was living in Denver. High blood pressure in 1890 was under 5% of the population to something like 70% of the population now. And that goes with heart disease and arterial disease, cardiovascular disease, all those concomitants, right? Risk of stroke. Added sugars are a huge thing. What about oatmeal, right? So the government came up with these really pretty terrible directions for us about how to eat. It started with some scientists who were saying we got to do something about cardiovascular disease, about heart disease and heart attacks. And all those people who came with concerns ended up pushed off the committee, and it ended up being fully represented by the food industry, which wants to sell the most profitable stuff, right? And so they came up with ways of, we're going to make this really shelf-stable stuff that is not going to go bad, that we're going to sell to people. It's going to be really profitable for us. And since we've had to take fat out, we decide that it has to be low fat. We're going to add sugar, right? So our food environment now is full of poor quality food. It's so much worse than we realize. What percent, I'm going to ask you guys to respond to this in the chat. What percent of the food in the grocery store do you think has added sugar? What percent of the food in the grocery store has added sugar? 80%. Catherine knows the answer. It's true. It's 80% is the last statistic I saw. Pretty bad, right? We've all heard that thing about it's better if you just shop around the outside of the store. Yeah, there's a lot of aisles. There's just no reason to go up them. There's no food there. There is stuff that will allow us to survive. I like to watch. Anybody watch The Walking Dead? I like to watch that. If you lived in Walking Dead times and there's no farms anymore, right? There's no way that produce is getting grown. You're going to want to grow produce at some point. But meantime, eat whatever, eat whatever you can find so you can survive. We don't live in that world. We don't have to eat whatever we can to survive. We can eat in a way that allows us to feel really well and thrive. It's out there. It's just not what's promoted to us. Yeah. Wow, right? 80%. What percent of the food we're eating qualifies as highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances? What percent is highly processed? I call it all those other things. What do you think? The average American, what percent of our food is highly processed? You guys are up there. I am finding statistics that say it's over half. And to me, I'm going to cry again. Like, that is heartbreaking. Over half of the food we're eating is highly processed, non-nutritious, toxic to our system, food-like substances. So even if you're eating better than the average person, you probably are farther out there eating more sugar and more highly processed stuff than your body can actually tolerate and do well with. So there's this idea of the 80-20 rule, right? I eat healthy 80% of the time, and I eat, the treats 20%. I eat healthy 80% and treats 20%. We can say that seems like a good approach especially if you're getting great results. Your health is awesome, your weight is awesome, etc. If you're not getting great results, it may be because that's not enough. Maybe our body needs more than 80% of our food to actually be food. Right? I'm mad about this. I'm mad about it because I got all the way to 55 and developing a whole bunch of health problems before I finally realized something is really wrong. I need to find answers. So the food industry is very much promoting these non-nutritious things as good enough. They're good. Like the 100% whole grain, 31 grams or more of whole grain. This is an interesting idea, right? So almost every time I see that, on the package, what it means is this was a whole grain before we refined it. Now it's a refined grain. Now it's flour. So if I'm eating something whole, it might, like, let's think about juice, right? If I eat an orange, there's a whole bunch of nutrition in there. If I drink orange juice, it may be 3 oranges, but a lot of the nutrition, a lot of what makes it nourishing to my gut and my systems and my cells has been taken out. And instead, we've just expanded the amount of food we started with and then took a whole bunch of the food out. That makes sense? I just really started looking at this packaging with a lot more wisdom. What about made with real fruit? There was real fruit when this started. If I were eating the real fruit, I'd be getting a whole bunch of nutritional benefit that would really make my body healthy and whole. Something made with real fruit, it was real fruit when they started, now it's not the same. Like they just made the sugars really concentrated. So that's going to have a different effect in my gut. It's going to have a different effect to my cells and my systems and my hormones and my brain, right? Well, what about this? It's a terrible, highly processed thing, but there's no nitrates or nitrites added. I used to buy into all this, made with organic wheat, made with real honey. All that packaging spoke to me. Look, if it didn't speak to us, it wouldn't work and they wouldn't do it. Do you know, you have an idea what the investment is in that the food, how much does the food industry invest in marketing? This is a con. This is such a con. This is what happens if you make what tastes good and what's convenient above what's healthy. Okay, now I want what tastes good. I want what's convenient. Now just tell me it's healthy and I'll buy it, right? I'm mad about this. I am super mad because we are losing our health. We're losing the women in this age group to decline and disease and misery and feeling like it's our own fault. What do you guys think? What do you think the food industry is investing in marketing to tell us things that aren't good for us are good for us? Anybody? What about the milk label? It is billions. It's 14 billion. You guys are so smart. Yeah. So I don't know about you, but it helped me to start getting mad about this. Like, I'm not looking at that packaging anymore. In fact, if it has packaging like that, it's probably lying, right? You know anybody like that? If their mouth is moving, they're lying. I just like this picture as a way of showing you that a lot of this packaging is a lie. And it's not leading you to health. Immune support. I can't remember what that packaging goes with. Oh, they added some vitamins. So there's this idea that we just took all the nutrition out of this food when we refined it. But now we're going to add vitamins back in. That seemed like a great idea to humans when we started really industrializing our food. It's not a great idea. The food that humans have eaten throughout history has had all those nutritional qualities. Once you refine it and have to add that back in, it's still not the same nutrition. I don't include it in this slideshow, but if you look up the difference between the nutrition in a strawberry Pop-Tart versus a strawberry, right? They can add some vitamins to the Pop-Tart. It's not going to come near the nutritional value of a strawberry. And that idea that we're going to industrially make food even better is just a false idea, right? Real nutritious food doesn't have these labels. The food industry is trying to tell you these things are good for you. Don't believe them. Look for real food, right? Yeah, 57% of the food we eat is highly processed food-like substances. That's why we're not all, at least 80% of us developing overweight, obesity, and all these metabolic diseases. That's why diabetes has become so common. That's why heart disease, high blood pressure is considered pretty normal now, right? Most of the food in our food environment is not nutritious, right? Oh, one more point I want to make about this. When researchers were rating the standard Western diet, the American diet, on nutritional quality on a score of 1 to 100. What do you think our diet rated as? 60. I wish. 35, 25, you're getting closer, 10%. Okay, it's 11. They scored it an 11 out of 100. That's our health, right? That's our kids' health. I mean, babies are being born addicted to sugar if their moms drink soda, right? It's painful. It's painful to me. And it really required me to get mad. Okay, instead of defending the way I eat, like I don't want to eat too different. I want to keep this, I want to keep that. Instead of that, what if I actually just really try to figure out what my body needs to be healthy? And then I find a way to just do that every day and love it. It actually isn't hard. When you take that way in, it actually isn't hard. So here's part of my argument about the 11 out of 100. Let's say you eat twice as good. You eat twice as good as the person next to you. Are you at a 22 out of 100? What if you eat 3 times, right? 33 out of 100? What if you are at 50 out of 100? What if you're amazingly, amazingly healthfully eating and you're at 80 out of 100? What if that's not enough to look and feel your best, right? What if getting closer to, I'm just going to feed my body what it needs every day, and I'm just going to find a way to love that. I'm just going to make that my habit. What if that's your approach instead, right? I'm so emotional about this. Okay. I know it's dramatic, right? Am I making the point? Okay, so let's just go through these 5 steps again. The first key is to eat the slender way, right? So you got Lily there. We really need to have a very clear, specific, effective plan. So we're not fiddling with it. We're not, a little bit better than everybody else. We're not this much better, but still far enough away. We need clarity. We need real clarity about how much protein, how much fat, how much fruits and vegetables, how much grains, right? That actually adds up to predictable, reliable results. So Lily is an example of one of my clients who's really smart, really good dieter, really good exerciser, had it all figured out. And then she says she hit menopause. She had her first hot flash. A month later, she was 13 pounds heavier. And she's like, that's okay. I know what to do. And she started doing the dieting and exercise, all the things that used to work. 10 years later, she weighed even more than ever, really feeling badly about herself, avoiding seeing friends by this point. She says, I gave up drinking because I wanted to lose weight. I quit drinking a bottle of wine a night and I didn't lose 1 ounce. Like everything she knew wasn't working. And so when she came to me, I taught her these 4 fundamental principles. I taught her the exact quantities that add up to results. Her body naturally started burning the excess fat. The weight started falling off. She started feeling all kinds of improvements, right? So her eat less, exercise more method was just adding up to worse and worse results. She says, I feel like I had it 80% right. But getting the exact formula from you, Ginny, made it possible. I can absolutely follow a formula. Just give me the real formula that works, right? Yep. When she came to me, she was about to do surgical solutions. I invest $8,000 in cool sculpting. And she said, how about if I try what Ginny's saying? I just have to eat the right things and make that my habit. And I can totally do this if you teach it to me if it's right. She was scared, right? I don't know if I can trust it, but it absolutely worked and it just keeps working. She says it feels like a miracle. She says, I was doing so many things right, but I just didn't quite have the formula right. And one thing that amazed me, I was not hungry losing this weight. I love eating this way and I'm not on a diet. It's just how I eat. By the way, I can't get very many people to share their before pictures, and I had a hard time finding mine. I was hiding from cameras. Does anybody relate to that? So I really admire that Lily was willing to share her before and after pictures. I've got Elaine's before and after pictures to talk about the flipping the switch. So one of the ways most of us are going to be able to tell we're flipping a switch is weight is going down and we're not hungry, right? If you're feeling hungry, losing weight, if you're feeling hungry and anxious, it might be that you're using the wrong approach. You're using the eat less, exercise more approach. That doesn't flip the switch. It actually makes your metabolism more messed up. So Elaine was this common sense healthy eater. I don't diet. I never dieted. But she did find herself as she was approaching 70 years old, feeling like I keep saying I'm going to do these activities when I lose a few pounds. I'm not losing, I'm gaining. I trust Ginny. I'm going to go see what she can teach me. So she is so happy now to have found a way of eating that just makes sense, that is absolutely reasonable and simple and consistently works for looking and feeling her best. Early on in the process, one of the first things she noticed is she had a pain in her back that she had just gotten very used to, and it went away. It was one of the first things she noticed. Over time, she noticed I'm thinking more clearly. I can prioritize and problem solve things better without getting frustrated or angry. So she says it's so much more than going from a size 16 to a size 10. It's about feeling confident that she can live a really healthy, active, independent life, doing what she wants to do for as long as possible. Looking at a quote from her, I feel I value myself much more highly. I value my nutrition and my overall health. So she was always feeding everybody else, taking care of everybody else. Now taking care of herself is one of the first priorities every day. She says, I'm happy with who I am and what I look like. And the most valuable part is I have a much better relationship with me. So how did she do this? She just resolved to follow this plan, figure out a way to make it her daily plan, and just keep enjoying the fruits of it, right? And she loves how much clarity it gives her and how much peace and confidence. We're working with our body instead of trying to force it. And that is a more peaceful existence. It's a more enjoyable and confident existence. It flips a switch in our body. So instead of fighting with our body, we're working with our body. Can you say in the chat, I want to work with my body? I really want to help convince you that fighting your body, feeling hungry, feeling anxious, feeling stressed is not the answer. You're not going towards more and more stress, less and less food. That's not the answer. I got a great picture of Colleen here. You might have seen this if you're on my Facebook page. Love this picture of her. Part of Colleen's story is she really craved wine. Like, I don't know how I'm going to give up my wine. And she really craved sweets. So she was in the PATH program. Some of you know this Naked Mind PATH program. Some of you might be in it. Great program. I coached in that program for a long time. And she was in one of the groups I was coaching in. And so getting a break from drinking felt like, oh, this is going to be so hard. I just don't know. I don't know how it's going to affect my relationships. I don't know if I can do it, right? So she spent a year changing her relationship with drinking so that she just didn't want to drink anymore. And then she was confronting, but what about the sweets? You know, I've been in love with sweets since I was a kid. They're really important to me. I really crave them. I'm really scared it's going to be stressful and miserable. But she realized, here's how she says this. She was alternating between these extremes of restricting, like she'd restrict for a year and just diet and just try to be good. And then she would overindulge and she would gain weight. Then she'd get freaked out by her weight. So then she'd restrict again. And she did that pretty much on and off every year for her whole life. And instead of being this happy, you know, it's not like she was happy either of those times. She wasn't happy when she was restricting and she wasn't happy when she was indulging. She says, I was a distraught, joyless mess, unable to handle life's challenges. She was so worried. I'm going to always have these cravings, right? It's going to be sad and difficult to give up the wine and give up the sweets, right? She knew she needed to make a change in both of those, but it was going to be sad and difficult. Now, she came to me and she said, I really don't have very much weight to lose, Ginny, maybe 4 pounds, but I really do want to change my relationship with food because I can see it's the same problem as my relationship with alcohol. She ended up dropping 14 pounds. She is thrilled with her weight now. She says she feels free and slim and fantastic. Her mood has transformed. She used to have anxiety and depressive episodes, and she doesn't have any of that anymore. She's off all the supplements. She says, I just feel so much more confident about living a long, healthy, self-determined life. One of her motivations was that her mom had developed dementia, and she felt like, I think the way I'm eating and drinking is going to contribute to problems with my future that could cause me to be really sick for a long time, could cause me to lose my ability to run my own life, right? That's real. That's a lot of people. So she really lost the cravings for cocktails and the cravings for sweets by following the Crave the Good method. She fell in love with nutritious foods, and it changed her whole life, her energy, right? Her mood, her resistance to disease, right? So our gut bacteria really quit yelling for the sweet foods, right? Our taste buds change within 2 weeks. We don't keep craving. You think you're going to keep craving the things that you crave now. That can go away. You can really crave the nutritious foods. The reward centers in our brain change. These things change. It doesn't stay difficult like you think it's going to. How we think about nutritious foods changes, right? And how they taste to us changes. Our preferences change. I'm just going to see what the chat says. I want to work with my body. Yes, Claire, good to see you here. Yeah, I want to work with my body. I feel that. All right, the fourth step is you achieve your slender, healthy weight, often a lower weight than you imagine, because getting truly slender is quite natural and easy when you eat what your body needs. It's not hungry. It's not fighting you to eat more. Like when you get to the end of a meal, you're like, I feel so satisfied, right? And then after this, you transition to weight maintenance eating. So Kristen, for example, when she got to this weight, she's super thrilled with it. She feels really cute and youthful. She's in her 40s, and she says, I feel better than I felt since my 20s, right? And then there's this phase where you start adding food. I talked about that. And so she got the guidance about how to do that so she could maintain, right? So this moment when you get to your healthy, slender weight, it's kind of a dream weight, and you pull the jeans out of your closet that you've been waiting. It's a fun moment. Going shopping for size 6 clothes was such a fun moment for me, right? It's not stressful, but this is an important stage to handle right. So you don't just start eating all the things that add up to terrible results again, to weight gain and health decline, all those things, that package of things that goes together. And then you live slender for good. And I have a couple of my clients there who have been actually, they started the program together and have been able to keep off the weight they wanted to keep off for years, right? They talk about, I love my size. I love how light I feel on my feet. So Krista, especially, is someone who really loves exercise, and she's always loved exercise. Every time I meet with her, she's on her Peloton or her treadmill. But she feels so much more light on her feet exercising more. It's so much more fun to exercise now. So they both say, I'm forever transformed. This is just how I eat, and I love it. That's where we want to get. This is just how I eat and drink, and I love it. These are a couple of the rock stars, right? Krista's at a size she hadn't seen since 7th grade, even though she read 400 diet books and exercised all the time. You know, she did learn that exercise is not the key to sustainable weight loss. It's not an excuse to eat non-nutritious food-like substances. It's a positive thing to have in your life along with eating really healthy. She's lost all self-consciousness about her body. She's dating again and comfortable in a bikini again. The best part, she says, because she's a high-level executive, she's got 3 kids, is that eating this way frees up tons of emotional energy for everything else in life. Like I have my eating managed. I'm not worried about eating. I'm not worried about drinking. I'm not worried about my weight. My eating is managed. I enjoy it, but it has this little part of my life, and the rest of my life is for everything else. That sounds good. And then Michaelina, this 70-year-old woman, always beautiful, snappy dresser, but she felt like she had to starve herself. If you haven't seen her video talking about, like, she went from someone who hated food, feared food, was always managing calories, right, to a person who enjoys food for the first time in her adult life, who's like, she says, I approached my whole life from abundance now, and it started with an abundance of food, an abundance of loving my body, right? So doesn't it sound different from dieting? I want you to approach this from a whole different angle, right? These are the 5 steps. Can you see how they're different from dieting? Is it clear? I don't know. It's clear to me. What's clear to you at this point? Anything helpful so far? Any takeaway that's helpful for you? Just checking. Yeah, interesting. Do you take into consideration health issues like Hashimoto's and food allergies? It's interesting. So people have various things that feel important to them about how they approach eating and how they approach weight loss. Definitely people with Hashimoto's sometimes find like it's super valuable to eat this way, and they do lose weight, and sometimes it might be slower than some of the other people in their cohort. Food allergies are very interesting. So you can definitely you can be following veganism and eat the slender way. You can be following a food allergy regimen and eating this way. One of the things that I teach people is, like, if you're going to follow veganism, that's fine, but there's a lot of junk food vegans who are really compromising their health and who are coming to me saying, I can't lose weight. So you might want veganism to fall underneath these 4 principles that I discovered are evidence-based. They work, right? So put it within, like you can be vegan within these 4 principles. You can follow a food allergy regimen within these 4 principles. Does that make sense? I know it's like, we're not deep enough into the specifics, but that's a reason to get on a call with me to talk about is there anything about what I teach that would be against what you're teaching? I suspect not, but I can't tell until we talk to each other. I love the word rubbish. Are you in the UK or in Australia, Claire? It's just a good word I never ever use. The difference between rubbish food and good nutritious food. But the flipping of the switch is the part I'm not sure about. Yeah, it's interesting. I can tell you the book that I got that concept from is called Nature Wants Us to Be Fat. It's just a way of understanding, why do these certain disease processes, these ways of really getting sick and declining that are so common go with overweight and obesity. And it's just a way of putting them all together that sort of makes sense to me. So nature wants us to be fat. By the way, every time I mention a book, they always have some kind of diet they recommend, and it's 80% right, is my conclusion. It's not going to get the people I work with, the women in their after 40s, to the kind of sustainable weight loss that my plan does. So they're like really close though. There's a whole bunch of books like that they're really close. All right, so I'm suggesting you step off the path you're on. If I'm going to do better than average, and it should be good enough, like we're arguing with reality. The reality is our food environment is worse than we think, and we need to be more different from that. So instead of, I'm going to do the dieting path and look for tips and tweak it a little bit, we want to step onto a whole different path. Like we all have our own piecemeal, healthy eating approach that seems so right. And searching for the latest tip every day also seems very right in this environment. But there's a real cost to continuing this way, right? Most of us are never going to find enough of the answers fast enough to prevent these outcomes that are terrible. right? So looking for the magic pill, looking for the latest diet, I think they're terrible approaches that can be cutting our lives, our healthy lives, short. That's what I see from the research, right? So transforming our nutrition is the number one key, and it doesn't have to be hard or painful. And once we find how to eat, we just make that our habit. That's a very different path, right? So this path, you got to get clear. What works very clearly, very specifically. I can tell if I'm doing it. I can tell if I'm not quite doing it, right? So when you're doing it, it should work. It should produce the results, right? So that's the path I'm encouraging you to step onto, right? You have to step off the path of I'm going to keep doing my own DIY approach and looking for the latest tip every day. I'm going to quit trying to eat less and exercise more and look and see if there's a magic tip today. That's sort of how I felt like I was doing it, right? So yeah, eating somewhat healthier than other people, but not enough, is a great way to end up with terrible results, is how I see it. We need to step onto a different path, a new path, a path of what works, that makes your body naturally healthy and happy, that makes weight loss natural and easy. All right, so the slender breakthrough call, if you feel like I kind of think I want to know more about this, get a slender breakthrough call with me. I have made 10 available. You can imagine these are one-on-one with me, and it's because, for one thing, my program is by invitation only. I have a really high success rate. So the success rate out there is less than 5% out in the marketplace. I have more than a 50% success rate. And it's partly because I'm very personally involved with my clients. I know them all. When they get stuck, we get together and talk about how to get unstuck. Like if you stay stuck for 3 years, you're never going to get there, right? So there's a personal connection that makes a difference. The clarity of the eating plan makes a difference, and then the personal support makes a difference. I'm able to partly make sure that this program stays that effective, that I have this much confidence to share with you, because I select people for my program who are likely to succeed, right? So I talked about that at the beginning. Any time we look at any kind of big behavior change people are approaching, about 20% of the people who like, I need to change this, about 20% are ready at any given time. So I use this program to help get you ready. And then we get on the phone, and it's part of it serves me because I can get more clarity about how ready are you to make a change, to be successful, right? So that's the next step. I've helped hundreds of clients like you achieve major transformations with this eating plan and with changing habits. And they all scheduled this breakthrough call, and they will tell you it's the best decision. It ended up transforming their lives. It's a personalized one-to-one consultation. You can imagine that's a limited resource. So yeah, I really encourage you. There's no obligation to it. There's no obligation for me to invite you into the program. There's no obligation, if I do, for you to say yes. But I'd love to meet you and help you figure out, what's the problem that needs to be solved here? What's the greatest opportunity for you? And if and how I think I can help you with the Slender for Good program. So it's really an opportunity to clear away confusion in your mind about what the problem is and what will help, right? And that's a big part of getting ready to eat what actually will change everything for you, that get you super clear. I just had one person report back. She came to this event, she came to the breakthrough call, and a few months later, she's down 12 pounds. I don't expect that really, but hopefully I really am trying to share something that can be life-changing in this event, and then getting on the phone can take that the next step. So the value of this call is $300. I have limited spaces. Grab a spot. I'm offering it now at no charge, partly because I have this sense of mission about women in this age group getting the truth, getting something that's actually going to make a difference. And it gives me a chance to meet people who are likely to succeed in my program. It's hundreds of times more effective than most of what you find out there. There is a catch, so you should qualify for this. It's not for everyone. So if you have gotten to the end of this program and you feel like keto gummies, that's the answer for me, or going to see my doctor and getting put on a medication that will make me less hungry, that's the answer for me. You may not be, it may not be most helpful for you to get on the phone with me, because I'll say, no, I don't think so. That's probably not what I'm going to recommend to you, right? When you book a call, there's a brief questionnaire to complete, and it's super helpful to me to really give us a start on that call so we make the best use of our time. I feel like if you stayed all the way to this point, you probably qualify for this call. You probably are past looking for magic pills and magic elixirs. You know, there's been snake oil salesmen for a long time, and they've gotten really, really good in our environment, right? It makes me really mad. So what about this? I kind of think I want to do this, but maybe it's not the right time. Maybe I should wait till January, right? I do have a lot of people who want to join in January, and I'm sure I will have a group in January. I really encourage you, don't put off learning what's actually healthy to eat. Why put that off another several months, another year? Maybe you're going to learn what's healthy to eat and decide, yeah, I'll start eating that way in January. You can do that. But at least learn it. At least learn what actually makes the difference, right? All right, I'm going to just see, did we fulfill the event promise? Do you have some understanding of why diets don't work and you may actually have to eat more? A little bit of understanding, right? I know it takes me a while to teach this so that people go, I'm really starting to get it. But hopefully at least you're curious about this idea. Did you get a little bit of how drinking affects our weight? And why you may not know how healthy eating works, and you may not know how weight loss works. You may have a whole bunch of wrong ideas packed into your head. And the top 3 mistakes making it harder than it has to be. And I would love if you stay in touch with me. I am constantly reworking this. Am I explaining things helpfully, right? Is it making a difference for you? So that's my email address. So I'd love to hear your takeaways. I'm trying to give the message with the right eating approach and supportive guidance, because it's not just, here's the eating approach. Oh, good. Magically, I'm done. Like, how do I change my habits so I crave the good foods and this just becomes a happy habit? It's not a diet, right? So the right eating approach, the right guidance, the right community supports, it's not hard. My clients tell me all the time, first they tell me, this isn't hard, this makes sense. Then they tell me, this is easy. Actually, it's easier than what I was doing. And it's more rewarding and more enjoyable than I ever thought, right? All right. Oh, she's in New Zealand, yeah. Oh, it's 7:30 a.m. I admire you getting up to do this. Okay, I'm just looking, see if there's any questions. I can take a couple of minutes if anybody has questions. Part of the problem with diets is I end up thinking constantly about food and eating. Yeah, we really want to get out of that place. So one of the things that I find is there is an effortful period of time when you're going, wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm eating this instead of that. Wait a minute, I usually snack right now. What am I doing? There's a time when it's effortful and it takes thought. And I can tell you, your primitive brain says this is a bad idea. We shouldn't have to be thinking so hard about this. So the truth is somewhere in between. The truth is it has to get so it doesn't take so much thought. And it definitely has to get so you're not obsessing about food and drink all the time. But there is a period of learning something new when it takes some time and attention, right? It takes a little bit of energy. I encourage people, carve out a little bit of time in your day. Maybe if you were going to start this project and that project and you're going to change your eating, maybe put those other projects aside for a few months. But eventually it can't be an obsessive thing, I think. I don't want to live in obsession about food and drink anymore. Like, it's just fascinating to me. Food and drink have taken such a smaller role. They still matter, right? I'm just not crazy. Like, I can't wait till it's time to eat and drink tonight. I don't have that kind of crazed feeling about it. I'm not going through my days and my nights thinking about eating and drinking and what do I have to avoid tomorrow because I did this today. That stuff all goes away. The amount of time and energy you get back when you put food in its place, like you enjoy it, but not in this crazed dopamine seeking, it's got to be so exciting and so special kind of way. Does that make sense? It's part of why when I ask my clients, what are your feelings about eating this way? The top feelings are peace and calm. It's not what you think, right? That's not what you think. I do want to enjoy my food in a more peaceful way. I don't want cravings and obsession. I love that you mentioned that, Barbara. Yeah, it's so much more positive. It is so much more positive. It's empowering. You don't feel like you're fighting with yourself. You're not fighting with your body. You're not fighting with your brain, right? All right, stay in touch with me. I would love to hear from you. I love to hear whatever you're learning. You may have something that you're really confident that goes against what I'm saying, and I'm happy to hear any of those things. I'm a scientist. I'm always learning. So feel free to share any of your thoughts with me, either in the Facebook group or send me an email. Is Diet Coke as bad as I think it is? It really, really is. Yeah, we don't have time to go into all that right now. I do. Krista is one of my clients. We have this conversation on and off. Yeah, Diet Coke was one of I'm obsessed with it. I needed things, and man, your gut doesn't need that. Your cells don't need that. Your hormones don't need that. Your brain doesn't need that. Yeah. All right, you're going to talk to me Saturday in November. Saturday. All right, I'm looking forward to it, Claire. Oh, yay. And you're talking to me on Friday, Catherine. I'm so glad. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate the interaction in here. I hope it was really helpful, and I hope to talk to you soon. Take care.